Hey, how's it going? Delrith here, bringing you another rapid-fire style review, this time for the game Ashen. Ashen is an action role-playing adventure game, some might even say Souls-like, developed by Aurora 44. The best way I could summarize Ashen in a nutshell is that it's exploration-based and extremely visual-focused, heavily inspired by the Dark Souls franchise. The main story summary would be that you're attempting to stop darkness from overtaking the entire planet by assisting the rebirth of the Ashen, a being of light that pretty much functions as this world's sun. It's an extremely unique premise to a story, right? Visually, it has a very unique art style. It was something that I had to get used to because I hadn't played any games that looked similar to it. I suppose you could say Wind Waker in a way, but not really. And it took a while for me to grow to appreciate it. It kind of looks like a dark animated comic book with interesting choices like characters completely missing their faces. So the question then is, how does this art style choice perform and how well executed was it throughout the game? Honestly, after I really got into playing the game, I grew to appreciate it quite a bit. For what they were trying to accomplish, they did it amazingly well, and the game's visuals themselves grew to be a major focus for me while I was playing through. I found myself simply admiring the many great views the outer world offers you, and when I was underground in the dark, I genuinely felt claustrophobic and isolated. Ashen's visuals have this stark contrast between dark and light, and I love what they did with that. It really feels like they nailed good and evil in the visual sense. The enemy types and visuals heavily complement the style as well. Most enemies well designed for the environments they're placed in, and some of them, like the ones that lurk in the dark, ended up getting me to jump a few times when they crawled down the walls or along them in sheer darkness. Bosses have fantastic visual design as well, each one being entirely unique and not at all recycled like we've seen in some previous Souls-like games, something I was definitely looking out for after having played through Immortal Unchained earlier this year. Armor and weapons also have their own unique styles and are visually appealing, all of them fitting the universe that they were created for, ranging from things like bandit rags to full plate mail, or short swords to giant hammers. Everything looks solid. I will say, however, that there's nothing really overly impressive, flashy, or gaudy as far as weapons are concerned, but I'm not entirely sure that's an issue. If you're into games for ambience and visual spectacle, I can definitely say you won't be disappointed in Ashen's presentation in any way, shape, or form. From a technical standpoint, there were no issues in the slightest. I never crashed, I never experienced any glitches or bugs during my playthrough, and honestly I can't remember a single problem in any sense, which is rather shocking these days when it comes to a PC release. My FPS and performance throughout was perfect, and I never encountered any drops, so props to the devs for getting it perfect in this regard on launch. Ashen's story is pretty damn solid as well. You're a hero tasked with ensuring the return of the Ashen, a being of pure light that staves off the night, by fighting enemies known as the Elder Dark who wish to prevent its rebirth. The world for quite some time has been buried in dark and humanity struggling to survive, but there's a chance for all that to change and you to rise up to the occasion. You're a faceless, nameless, and unknown traveler, building their name through the actions and deeds they do, side by side with an ever-constant and changeable NPC companion, or entirely through the game with a friend. I found the story to be engrossing, although extremely sad at times, and it kept me wanting to know more throughout my play. The main characters you assist throughout and their storylines flow rather well, all of the subquests and side plots tying directly into the main story in some shape or form and really helping to develop the world. I entirely suggest that when you play you complete all the side stories, you get a lot more understanding of what has happened in the years leading up to the Ashen's rebirth. I felt the voice acting for each and every character was well done, and I didn't have any issues with any of the NPCs' voices or dialogue. It was solid across the board throughout. In the end, the story will run you anywhere from 16 to 20 hours, with the additional content, side quests, and in-game junk adding another 10 to 20 if you take it nice and slow. I will say, however, that I definitely wish to run into and encounter more characters out in the open world. There were times where it felt like there was just nothing and nobody for vast amounts of space, and encounters were few and far between. I would have liked to possibly run into other tribes of humans or conclaves just trying to do their own thing, but from what I could tell, you seem to be a part of the only major faction, generally bringing everyone back to your city, known as Vagrant's Rest, I believe. I understand what they were going for, but it never hurts to have more unique NPCs out in the world like this to lend additional information to what's going on and what they've had to deal with themselves outside of your small bubble you live in as a main character. Gameplay flows like you would expect a Souls-like game to flow, and the comparisons are extremely easy to draw upon. Killing enemies rewards you with Scoria, aka Souls, which you then use to improve weapons, upgrade your Crimson Gourd, aka your Estus, or buy items. You, of course, drop your Scoria on the ground when you're killed, and if you die again it's gone forever, just like in the Souls titles. Heck, even the light and heavy attack buttons are the same, but it doesn't feel like a ripoff, it feels more like a tribute, and a pretty damn good one mechanically at that. Personally, I think Ashen's bonfires, aka the shrines, are better anyway. They're a giant rock with a friendly and adorable whale bird, aka a werb, if you will, that you unlock at a certain point for fast travel, and that's just awesome. I never felt like the game did anything with its combat that was subpar or below what other games of the type have to offer. It felt extremely solid and honestly even better in some ways, with all of your actions feeling responsive, with weapons even having their own weights and attack patterns for you to adjust to. There was definitely an opportunity for you to play the way you wanted, with armor weights and weapon styles, which I grew to appreciate when fighting certain enemies, having to swap to fit the situation. Even though it draws so much inspiration from Dark Souls, it still feels unique enough to itself that I never felt any of the similarities were a downside, only a positive, and there are very few games where I could say that when things are directly copied. Ashen feels like a lot of the combat encounters were designed around having an NPC or having two players as well. Playing solo is an extremely daunting and difficult task at times, albeit fun, and I found myself getting my ass kicked in multiple situations when I chose to go it alone. I'm glad they went out of their way and seemingly balanced a good chunk of the game with co-op in mind, as in some cases games that allow cooperation seem too easy. Plus, if you go down, your friend or buddy or whatever has a chance to revive you, not that load screens are a major issue if you both die anyway. I think that the addition of an attribute system to Ashen wouldn't have been a bad thing. There's never, in my opinion, too much freedom when it comes to customizing your playstyle, and there were definitely times where I felt like I had way too much money on me and wanted to dump it into something like stats or something else, but couldn't. Either way, all of the core systems like combat and progression were solid, and there's not a lot to nitpick. All in all, my experience with Ashen was an entirely positive one. There were very few things that I could change about the game or would want to change about the game, or any criticisms I could give. The developers knew what they wanted Ashen to be from the beginning and nailed it. It's a visually unique action RPG that seemingly came out of nowhere, and I enjoyed it from start to finish and might even try playing through again in the future. The price point of it being $40 on the Epic Store is an added bonus, and it's a game I could suggest you try to pick up sometime. All that said and done, my final score for Ashen is going to be a solid, an extremely solid 9 out of 10. It was a breath of fresh air in a world of Souls-like copies and imitations, and they did a fantastic job at standing out. Anyway, that's going to be it for this rapid-fire style review. If you liked it, do me a solid and hit that like button, and if you're already subscribed, ring the bell to get notifications on our videos in the future. Oh yeah, and if you like the rapid fire reviews or would like to see when I'm doing them live on Twitch, you can head over to my Twitter at AJSADelrith and give me a follow. I'd appreciate it. Till the next video, this is Delrith, and I'll be seeing ya.